The alarm bells rang through every corridor of the battlecruiser Soul's Pride. Captain Lee Dongwu ran from his quarters toward the bridge, his boots echoing against the metal floors. 3 years of peaceful exploration had ended in a single moment. "Report," Lee commanded as he reached his command chair. The bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, screens flashing with incoming data streams. Commander Park Soo-jin turned from her tactical station. Her face was pale but determined. "Captain, we're receiving an emergency broadcast from the Galactic Coalition headquarters. Priority Alpha transmission. Put it through the main screen." The view screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Veltara of the Coalition Council. The tall, blue-skinned diplomat's usual calm demeanor had vanished. Behind her, other species representatives moved in obvious panic. "All Coalition members, this is an immediate threat warning. The Vorthan Empire has begun full-scale military operations against our territories. 17 star systems have fallen in the past 30 standard days. No survivors have been found." Lee felt his stomach drop. 17 systems meant billions of lives lost. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Ambassador Veltara continued. "The Vorthan fleet moves with unprecedented speed and violence. Their energy-draining weapons shut down our defensive systems within seconds. Traditional coalition tactics have proven completely ineffective. All member species are ordered to prepare for total war." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Park Soo-jin spoke first.
"Captain, our intelligence files on the Vorthons are limited."
"They're crystalline beings from the outer spiral arm. We've had almost no direct contact. What do we know about their military capabilities?" "According to Coalition reports, they use weapons that target bioelectric signatures. Most galactic species rely on organic neural networks to control their technology. When the Vorthans attack, ships lose power, weapons stop working, and life support fails." Lee studied the tactical display showing human space. 53 colonies spread across 28 systems, each one now under threat from an enemy they barely understood. "Send a priority message to Admiral Kim Tae-ho at Fleet Command. Tell him we need an immediate strategy meeting. Also, contact Dr. Yoon Hana in the Science Department. I want her analysis of these Vorthan weapons." 20 minutes later, the senior staff gathered in the main briefing room. Dr. Yoon Hana had brought her research tablet and looked troubled as she reviewed the incoming data. "The situation is worse than we thought," she began. "The Vorthans don't just defeat their enemies. They completely eliminate them. Every conquered world shows the same pattern: total destruction of population centers, harvesting of mineral resources, then abandonment." Admiral Kim Tae-ho appeared on the communication screen from Earth. His weathered face showed the strain of commanding humanity's defense forces. "Captain Lee, I've been reviewing the Coalition data. These Vorthans have technology we've never seen before." "What makes their weapons so effective, Admiral?" "They target the electrical patterns that most species use for neural processing. When a Veltaran thinks, their brain creates specific energy signatures. The Vorthon weapons lock onto those signatures and drain the power from anything connected to that nervous system." Dr. Yoon leaned forward. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the technical specifications. There's something interesting about human neural patterns that might be relevant." "Explain." "Most galactic species evolved with very efficient centralized nervous systems. Their thoughts follow predictable electrical pathways. Humans are different. Our brains developed with massive redundancy and chaotic processing patterns. We're actually considered neurologically primitive by galactic standards." Park Soo-jin frowned. "How does that help us?" "The Vorthan weapons are designed to target organized, efficient neural signatures. Human brains might not register properly on their targeting systems. Our primitive neural chaos could be an advantage." Admiral Kim looked skeptical. "That's a big assumption to base our defense on, Doctor." "There's more, sir. I've been studying human military history compared to other species. Most galactic civilizations fight wars using coordinated fleet movements and centralized command structures. Humans have always been different. We adapt quickly, fight independently, and use unpredictable tactics." Lee began to understand. "You're saying our supposed weaknesses might actually be strengths against this enemy?" "Exactly, Captain. The Vorthans have conquered 17 systems using the same approach each time. They arrive, disable the central command networks, then systematically destroy organized resistance. But human military doctrine has always emphasized individual initiative and decentralized decision-making." The Admiral's expression grew thoughtful. Doctor, are you suggesting we might be naturally resistant to their primary weapons? I'm suggesting we're different enough that their standard tactics might not work against us. Every species they've conquered has fought the same way. Organized, efficient, predictable. Humans fight like chaos itself. Park Soo-jin pulled up tactical displays showing human fleet dispositions. Our ships are designed differently too. Most coalition vessels use centralized power cores and unified command systems. Human ships have redundant systems, backup power sources, and distributed control networks. Because we don't trust centralized systems, Lee added. Human engineers always assume something will break, so they build multiple backups. Dr. Yoon nodded enthusiastically. That paranoid approach to engineering might save us. When Vorthan weapons target our ships, they won't find single points of failure to exploit. Admiral Kim's image flickered as priority messages reached his command center. Captain, I'm receiving reports that the Vorthon fleet has been detected at the edge of Coalition space. They're moving toward human territory. How much time do we have? 6 days, maybe 7. They're not hiding their approach. According to intercepted communications, they consider humans to be the least advanced Coalition member. They expect easy conquest. Lee felt anger rising in his chest. They think we're primitive. Let them think that, Dr. Yoon said quietly. Underestimating human adaptability has been a mistake for every enemy we've ever faced. Park Soo-jin began calculating fleet movements on her tactical board. Captain, if we're right about our advantages, how do we use them? We do what humans have always done when faced with superior enemies, Lee replied. We survive, we adapt, and we fight back with everything we have. Admiral Kim's voice carried new determination. All human forces are ordered to battle stations. This is total war authorization. Every ship, every colony, every human in space is now part of our defense force. The meeting ended with urgent preparations beginning across human space. As the senior staff dispersed to their duties, Lee remained in the briefing room studying the star charts. Park Soo-jin paused at the door. Captain, do you really think we can survive this? Lee looked at the display showing the approaching Vorthon fleet. Hundreds of ships carrying weapons that had destroyed entire civilizations. Against them, humanity could field perhaps 50 combat vessels in the stubborn determination of a species that had never accepted defeat. Commander, in 6 days we'll find out if being human is enough. The mining colony of New Busan buzzed with desperate activity. Civilian engineer Choi Min-ho wiped sweat from his forehead as he watched massive cargo haulers lift off into the orange sky. 3 days remained before the Vorthon fleet arrived, and half the colonists still needed evacuation. Min-ho, we need you at the northern perimeter, called his supervisor through the radio. The defense grid is acting up again. Min-ho grabbed his toolkit and headed for the perimeter stations. The colony's defensive systems had been designed to protect against pirates and asteroid impacts, not military invasion. Everything needed upgrading, and they had almost no time. At the defense station, he found the problem immediately. The targeting computers used standard coalition software that relied on predictable enemy movement patterns. Against the Vorthans, it would be useless. Can you fix it? Asked Colonial Militia Captain Kang Ji-won. She looked exhausted from 3 days of constant preparation. Not fix, Min-ho replied, opening the computer housing. But I can make it work differently. He began rewiring the targeting system, bypassing the main computer and connecting it directly to manual controls. Instead of automated responses, human operators would control each weapon directly. This is going backwards in technology, Captain Kang observed. Sometimes backwards is better, Min-ho said, connecting the final wire. Machines think in patterns. Humans think in chaos. 2 hours later, his modifications were complete. The defense grid now operated like an extension of human reflexes rather than computer logic. When Vorthan scout ships appeared at the edge of the system, they got their first surprise. The scouts approached expecting to map defensive positions before the main fleet arrived. Instead, they encountered weapons that fired in unpredictable patterns, changing targets randomly and ignoring standard tactical doctrine. Min-ho watched from the command center as 2 scout ships exploded under concentrated fire. The remaining scouts retreated, but not before their sensors recorded something impossible. Human defensive systems had functioned normally despite Vorthon energy-draining attacks. How did we do that? Captain Kang asked, staring at the tactical display. Our weapons don't depend on centralized computers, Min-ho explained. Each gun position is manually controlled. When their energy drain hits us, humans just keep firing anyway. News of the successful defense spread quickly through human space. For the first time, Vorthon weapons had failed to achieve instant victory. On the training planet of New Jeju, Lieutenant Colonel Jang Yuri studied ancient warfare records in her temporary command post. Her Special Forces unit had been tasked with developing new tactics against an enemy no one understood. The historical files fascinated her. Human military history showed a pattern of defeating technologically superior enemies through unconventional methods. She focused on guerrilla campaigns, urban warfare, and psychological tactics. "Colonel, the latest intelligence reports are coming in," announced Major Park Sang-ho. Entering her office with a data tablet, Yuri reviewed the files. Fourth-hand ground forces relied on energy weapons and powered armor that made them nearly invulnerable in standard combat. Their tactics emphasized overwhelming firepower and rapid territorial control. They fight like they expect enemies to line up and wait to be shot, she observed. "Most galactic species do fight that way," Park replied. "Organized formations, predictable movements, centralized command." Yuri smiled grimly. "Then we won't fight like that." She began developing training programs based on historical human conflicts. Her soldiers would learn to fight without communication networks, to operate independently for days, and to use the environment as a weapon. The training was brutal. Soldiers learned to move silently through difficult terrain, to set traps using improvised materials, and to strike at enemy weak points before disappearing. Most importantly, they learned to think for themselves when communication was lost. "This isn't how modern warfare is supposed to work," complained Sergeant Kim Ho-jun after a particularly difficult exercise. "Modern warfare doesn't work against the Vorthons," Yuri replied. "Ancient warfare might." Back on Earth, President Lim Sira stood before the United Colonies Assembly. Representatives from every human world attended either in person or by hologram. The chamber fell silent as she approached the podium. "Fellow humans," she began, "we face extinction. The Vorthon Empire has destroyed 17 civilizations and now approaches our space with the same intent." Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. "However, intelligence reports suggest we possess advantages our enemies do not expect. Our chaotic nature, our unpredictable thinking, and our stubborn refusal to surrender may be exactly what saves us." She activated a holographic display showing the approaching Vorthon fleet. "I am authorizing the use of all experimental weapons, regardless of previous safety concerns. Every human colony will contribute to our defense. This is not just war, this is survival." The vote was unanimous. Every representative approved total war authorization. In the research facilities beneath Geneva, Dr. Moon Ji-ho worked frantically on understanding human neural differences. His latest scans showed remarkable patterns in brain activity during stress situations. "Look at this," he told his assistant, Dr. Lee So-young. "When most species face crisis, their neural activity becomes more organized, more efficient. Humans do the opposite. The brain scans showed human subjects becoming more creative and unpredictable under pressure. Neural pathways that normally remained dormant activated during combat situations. We literally think differently when we're fighting for our lives," So-young observed. "More than that," Ji-ho replied. "We think in ways that other species can't predict or counter. Our brains evolved for survival in chaotic environments." He pulled up comparative studies from coalition medical databases. Every other species showed similar neural patterns during combat. Organized, efficient, logical. Humans showed random creativity and adaptive thinking that defied standard analysis. "Doctor, if you're right about this," So-young said slowly, "then human unpredictability isn't a weakness. It's our greatest weapon." Across human space, similar discoveries emerged. Human engineering created redundant systems that continued functioning after catastrophic damage. Human tactics emphasized individual initiative over centralized command. Human psychology thrived on chaos that paralyzed other species. Captain Lee Dongwoo received reports from every front as the Soul's Pride moved toward the outer defense perimeter. Each report confirmed the same pattern. Humans were naturally suited for exactly the kind of war the Vorthons had never faced. "Captain," Park Soo-jin announced from her tactical station, "long-range sensors are detecting the main Vorthon fleet. Estimated arrival in 18 hours. Lee studied the sensor readings. 300 ships approaching in perfect formation, their energy signatures unlike anything in Coalition databases. In 18 hours, humanity would discover whether being different was enough to survive. All stations, prepare for combat, he ordered. Signal all human forces. Operation Chaos begins at dawn. The gathering storm was about to break, and humanity would meet it with everything that made them human. War Commander Zenthak stood in the crystalline command chamber of his flagship, studying the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. The human star systems lay before them like fruit waiting to be harvested. Intelligence reports indicated these humans were the most primitive members of the Coalition, having joined galactic society only 50 years earlier. Analysis of human defensive capabilities, he commanded his subordinate, Subcommander Velkris. Minimal threat, War Commander. Their ships use outdated fusion drives and projectile weapons. Their colonial defenses consist of basic shield generators and conventional energy weapons. Standard conquest protocol should achieve victory within 3 standard days. Zenthak's crystalline form shifted colors slightly, indicating pleasure. Excellent. Begin Phase 1. Disable their communication networks and power grids. Once they are blinded and helpless, we will harvest their worlds systematically. The Vorthan fleet moved into human space like a tide of death. 300 ships arranged in perfect geometric formations, their crystal hulls gleaming with contained energy. Each vessel carried weapons that had never failed against any enemy. Captain Seo Wu-jin commanded the destroyer Incheon's Fury at the outer perimeter of the Kepler system. His ship was one of 30 human vessels tasked with delaying the Vorthan advance. Against 300 enemy ships, it seemed like madness. Contact in 60 seconds, announced his sensor operator, Ensign Yoon Tai-min. Enemy formation is maintaining perfect spacing and coordination. Wu-jin studied his enemy through the view screen. The Vorthan ships moved with mechanical precision, each maintaining exact distance from its neighbors. Beautiful, efficient, and completely predictable. All stations, implement Chaos Protocol, he ordered. Across the human fleet, ships began random movements that violated every principle of space warfare. Instead of maintaining formation, each captain acted independently. Some accelerated directly toward the enemy, others moved sideways. Still others began spinning while firing in all directions. The Vorthan energy drain weapons fired simultaneously, their beams targeting human ships with perfect accuracy. According to every previous engagement, the human vessels should have lost power immediately. Instead, the Incheon's Fury continued firing while spinning like a madman's toy. Its weapon systems, powered by 17 independent generators, kept functioning despite the energy drain. Other human ships showed similar resilience, maintaining combat effectiveness through pure engineering redundancy. Impossible, Subcommander Velkris reported to Zenthak. Human vessels are not responding to energy drain according to specifications. Increase power to drain weapons, Zenthak commanded. The Vorthan weapons doubled their output, but human ships continued their chaotic dance of destruction. Worse, their unpredictable movements made return fire nearly impossible. Vorthan targeting computers designed for enemies that fought with logical tactics could not track the random human maneuvers. The Incheon's Fury flew directly between 2 Vorthan cruisers, firing continuously at point-blank range. Captain Seo's crew worked like demons, manually targeting enemies while their ship performed impossible acrobatics. Engineering reports power fluctuations in sectors 7 through 12, called his chief engineer, Lieutenant Park Min-jung. But we're still combat effective. Keep firing everything we have, Wu-jin replied. Make them work for every meter of space. On the contested world of New Seoul, Major Hwang In-soo crouched in a bombed-out building, watching Vorthan ground forces advance through the city streets. The crystalline soldiers moved in perfect formation, their energy weapons clearing every building methodically. Just like the intelligence reports said, whispered Sergeant Oh Da-min beside him. They fight like machines, Hwang smiled grimly. Then we fight like ghosts. His troops had spent the last week turning New Seoul into a maze of traps, false walls, and hidden passages. Every street corner concealed surprises designed to frustrate and confuse an enemy that expected organized resistance. The Vorthans entered the first block, their formation advancing with mechanical precision. Hidden charges detonated beneath their feet, not enough to cause serious damage but sufficient to disrupt their perfect spacing. Smoke grenades created visual chaos while sonic disruptors played random noise through hidden speakers. Contact front. A Vorthon soldier called in their crystalline language, translated by human listening devices. But when they fired at the suspected enemy position, they found nothing. The humans had already moved to different locations, leaving only mirrors and decoy equipment behind. Huang's forces struck from sewers, rooftops, and basement tunnels. They never stayed in one place long enough for the Vorthons to target effectively. Each attack was followed by immediate retreat to new positions, following no predictable pattern. Major, the enemy is trying to establish a command post in Sector 4, reported Corporal Kim Subin through coded radio bursts. Let them, Huang replied. Then we show them what happens to command posts in human warfare. 20 minutes later, the carefully established Vorthon command post exploded in a spectacular display of human engineering. The building had been hollowed out and filled with industrial mining charges, triggered by the enemy's own energy weapons. Back in space, the battle continued with growing Vorthon frustration. Their perfect formations meant nothing against enemies that refused to form lines. Their superior weapons could not target ships that moved in 3 dimensions simultaneously. War Commander Zenthak watched his tactical display with growing alarm. Human casualties were mounting, but not at the expected rate. More disturbing, his own forces were, taking damage from what should have been helpless prey. Human, ship approaching at attack vector, 77 Mark III, his tactical officer, announced. Zenthak observed a human destroyer, flying directly at his flagship, spinning end over end while firing every weapon it possessed. The ship's hull showed massive damage, its engines trailing vapor, but it continued attacking with suicidal determination. All weapons target that vessel, he commanded. Every gun on the Vorthon flagship fired simultaneously. The human destroyer disappeared in a ball of plasma and metal fragments. But in its final moments, it had launched something toward Zenthak's ship. Incoming projectile, the tactical officer reported. Primitive kinetic weapon. The projectile struck the Vorthon flagship's crystal hull and exploded. Not with energy, but with thousands of small metal fragments that shredded the ship's elegant crystalline structure. Human weapons designed for asteroid mining proved devastatingly effective against enemies who had never faced such crude tactics. Damage report, Zenthak demanded as his ship shuddered under the impact. Hull breaches in sections 12 through 18. The projectile contained some form of fragmentation device. Our crystal armor is not effective against kinetic fragmentation. For the first time in his military career, Zenthak felt something approaching doubt. These humans fought with weapons and tactics no civilized species would consider. They seemed to view death in battle not as failure, but as another weapon to be used. On New Sol, Major Huang received word that orbital bombardment was beginning. The Vorthons, frustrated by ground resistance, had decided to destroy the city from space. All units. Phase 3, he transmitted on all frequencies. Across the city, his hidden forces activated their final surprise. Industrial terraforming equipment, modified for war, began projecting massive electromagnetic fields skyward. The same technology used to move asteroids now interfered with Vorthon targeting systems. Energy beams meant to level city blocks struck random targets instead. Some missed entirely, others hit Vorthon positions by accident. The precise orbital bombardment became a chaotic light show that accomplished nothing. Sir, the enemy is jamming our targeting systems with some form of electromagnetic interference, a Vorthon officer reported to his commander. How is that possible? Our systems are specifically hardened against known electromagnetic weapons. Unknown, sir. Human technology does not match any known specifications. As the first day of battle ended, both sides counted their losses. The Vorthons had expected total victory and human surrender. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to thrive on chaos and turned defeat into counterattack. War Commander Zenthak stood alone in his damaged command chamber, studying reports that made no sense. Human forces had been decimated according to standard military analysis, yet they continued fighting with undiminished fury. Perhaps, he said to himself, we have underestimated these primitives. In space and on planetary surfaces, the lines had been drawn. The Vorthons had superior technology and overwhelming numbers. The humans had chaos, stubbornness, and a willingness to turn their own deaths into weapons. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Bae Hyunwoo stood in the command center of the battleship New Gwangju, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire warfront. 5 days of fighting had taught both sides hard lessons, but the humans had learned faster. "Admiral, all task forces report ready for Operation Madhouse," announced his communications officer. Commander Yoon Ji-hae Hyunwoo studied the tactical situation. The Vorthons still outnumbered human forces 3-1, but their perfect formations had become predictable targets. It was time to show them what human coordination looked like when it abandoned all military logic. Signal all ships. Implement random attack patterns. No two vessels follow the same approach vector. No coordinated timing. Each captain acts independently until further orders. Across human space, 97 warships began the strangest military operation in galactic history. Instead of organized assault formations, each ship chose its own target and attacked using completely different tactics. The destroyer Seoul's Hammer approached its target while broadcasting ancient Korean folk songs. The cruiser Daegu's Pride fired all weapons while spinning in a corkscrew pattern. The frigate Ulsan's Defiance launched every missile it carried, then rammed the nearest enemy vessel at full acceleration. War Commander Zenthak watched the approaching chaos with growing horror. His tactical computers could not analyze human movements because there was no pattern to analyze. Every ship did something different, making centralized defense impossible. "How do we target enemies that have no formation?" demanded Subcommander Velkris. "Unknown. Standard tactical analysis requires predictable enemy behavior. Humans appear to have abandoned military logic entirely." The battle became a three-dimensional madhouse where conventional tactics meant nothing. Human ships attacked from impossible angles, ignored enemy fire to close to ramming distance, and used their own destruction as weapons against Vorthon formations. Captain Lee Dongwoo, commanding the Seoul's Pride, found himself fighting 3 Vorthon cruisers simultaneously. His ship had lost main engines, most weapons, and life support to half the vessel, but his crew continued fighting with manual controls and emergency power. "Captain, we're receiving surrender demands from the enemy," reported Park Soo-jin from her damaged tactical station. "Tell them we don't know that word," Lee replied, ordering his remaining weapons to fire at point-blank range into the nearest Vorthon hull. The Seoul's Pride died in a brilliant explosion that took 2 enemy cruisers with it. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human crews chose destruction over surrender, turning every defeat into costly victory for their enemies. On the planet New Daegu, Colonel Song Mi-young commanded ground forces that had been fighting without resupply for 6 straight days. Her troops moved through underground tunnels, abandoned buildings, and improvised fortifications, striking at Vorthon forces whenever opportunity presented itself. "Colonel, enemy forces are demanding our surrender," reported Lieutenant Kim Ju-won through a crackling radio transmission. "They're offering safe passage off-world if we lay down weapons." Song considered this for exactly 2 seconds. "Tell them they can collect our weapons from our dead hands." Her forces had discovered something that terrified the Vorthons. Humans could fight effectively without centralized command, regular supplies, or organized formations. Each squad operated independently, using local materials to create weapons and traps. The breakthrough came when Sergeant Park Yoon-hae captured a damaged Vorthon weapon. Instead of trying to repair it according to Vorthon specifications, she and her team began taking it apart to understand how it worked. "Look at this," she called to Song, pointing at the weapon's crystal focusing array. "Their energy systems are incredibly efficient, but they're also incredibly fragile." Song examined the delicate crystal components. "What happens if we introduce electromagnetic interference at the right frequency?" "Let's find out." Using parts from human communication equipment, they built a crude electromagnetic pulse generator. When tested against captured Vorthon weapons, the results exceeded their wildest hopes. The precise crystal system simply shattered under electromagnetic stress. "Get this information to every human unit immediately," Song ordered. "We just found their weakness." The discovery spread through human forces like wildfire. Within hours, every human position was building improvised EMP weapons using whatever technology they could salvage. Engineer Park Kyung-ho, working in the ruins of a destroyed factory on New Busan, received the electromagnetic frequency data and began scaling it up. If small EMP devices could disable hand weapons, larger versions might affect Vorthon ships. "We need more power," he told his assistant. Engineer Lee Hae-jin, much more power. They connected industrial fusion generators in series, creating an electromagnetic pulse powerful enough to affect vessels in orbit. The device was crude, dangerous, and likely to destroy itself after one use, but it worked. When the improvised EMP fired skyward, 3 Vorthon ships in low orbit simply stopped functioning. Their elegant crystal hulls became tombs as every system failed simultaneously. News of the EMP breakthrough reached Admiral Hunwoo as his fleet engaged the main Vorthon force. Human ships had been taking terrible losses, but the enemy was learning to fear their unpredictable tactics. All ships, new orders, he broadcast on all frequencies. Every vessel is to construct electromagnetic pulse weapons using available materials. Engineering specifications are being transmitted now. The human fleet began a desperate transformation. Warships became construction platforms as crews worked to build weapons that violated every principle of elegant engineering. The devices were massive, clumsy, and used more power than entire cities. But they worked. When the modified human fleet attacked again, War Commander Zenthak watched in disbelief as his perfectly coordinated formations simply died. The crude human EMP weapons reached across space to shatter crystal technology that had taken millennia to perfect. How is this possible? He demanded from his command chamber. No species has ever developed effective countermeasures to our weapon systems. Unknown, War Commander. Human technology appears to function on principles we do not understand. Sub-Commander Velcris studied the tactical displays showing Vorthon losses. Perhaps we should consider negotiated withdrawal. These humans are proving more costly than anticipated. Zenthak's crystalline form flashed angry colors. The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. Signal the High Council. Request additional forces. But the request for reinforcements never reached Vorthon space. Human forces had discovered something else about their enemy's elegant technology. The same crystal systems that made Vorthon weapons so powerful also made their communication networks vulnerable to electromagnetic interference. Captain Odabin, commanding a human stealth ship, monitored Vorthon communications from deep space. Her crew had spent 3 days learning to disrupt enemy transmissions, using modified mining equipment. Their entire communication system runs through centralized crystal networks, she reported to Admiral Hyunwoo. If we can generate enough electromagnetic interference, we can blind them completely. Do it, Hyunwoo replied immediately. Human ships throughout the war zone began coordinated electromagnetic attacks on Vorthon communication systems. The elegant, efficient networks that connected the enemy fleet became useless static generators. For the first time in Vorthon military history, their forces found themselves cut off from central command. Individual ship commanders trained for perfect coordination had to make independent decisions. But their entire military doctrine depended on centralized control and predetermined responses. War Commander Zenthak found himself commanding a fleet that could not communicate with itself or with the Empire. His perfect formations became isolated groups of ships, each fighting its own desperate battle against enemies that seemed to thrive on chaos status. Of all vessels, he demanded, unable to establish communication with 60% of the fleet, his communications officer reported. Human electromagnetic interference is blocking all standard frequencies. Zenthak stared at the tactical displays showing his forces in disarray. The humans had turned his greatest strengths into weaknesses. Their chaotic tactics neutralized his superior coordination. Their crude electromagnetic weapons destroyed his advanced technology. Their willingness to die fighting made victory impossibly expensive. Perhaps, he said quietly, we have made a mistake. But it was too late for reflection. The tide of battle had turned, and the humans were no longer content to merely defend themselves. They had tasted victory and found they liked it. The real slaughter was about to begin. General Nam Ki-young stood on the bridge of the assault carrier New Seoul as it led a human armada deep into Vorthon space. Behind him followed 200 human warships. Their hulls scarred from battle, but their crews hungry for final victory. General, we're entering the Crystallis system, reported Navigation Officer Kim Yoo-jung. Enemy homeworld confirmed on long-range sensors. Ki-young studied the tactical display showing the Vorthon homeworld. Intelligence reports indicated a population of 12 billion crystalline beings, protected by massive orbital defense platforms and the remnants of their once mighty fleet. All ships battle formation Delta, he ordered. Remember, no survivors means no revenge later. The human fleet spread into attack formation, but not the organized patterns favored by other galactic species. Human ships moved in loose clusters, each group following different approach vectors and timing. The coordination looked chaotic, but it had proven devastatingly effective. On the Vorthan homeworld, Emperor Krexthan watched the approaching human fleet with growing panic. His military advisors had assured him that the primitive humans could never threaten the Empire's core worlds. Now his own orbital sensors showed enemy ships carrying weapons that had already destroyed half his forces. Status of defensive systems, he commanded his military council. War Commander Zenthak, recently returned from the failed invasion, delivered the grim report. Your Majesty, human electromagnetic weapons have proven effective against our crystal technology. Our orbital platforms are vulnerable to their crude but powerful attack methods. How many ships do they have? 200 confirmed vessels, Your Majesty, but their individual combat effectiveness far exceeds projections. Each human ship fights with the desperation of a cornered animal. Emperor Krexthan's crystalline form shifted to darker colors, indicating deep concern. Surely our superior numbers will prevail. We still have 500 ships in the home defense fleet. With respect, Your Majesty, numbers may not matter against humans. They do not fight according to any logical military doctrine. Their tactics appear designed to maximize destruction rather than preserve their own forces. As if to prove his point, the first wave of human ships reached the outer defense perimeter. Instead of probing attacks or attempts to disable defensive systems, the humans launched immediate full-scale assault using every weapon they possessed. Captain O'Dobbin commanded the stealth cruiser Mokpo's Revenge, leading a squadron tasked with penetrating Vorthan orbital defenses. Her ships carried specially modified EMP warheads designed to overload crystal technology on a massive scale. All vessels, weapons free, she ordered. Target the largest defensive platforms first. Human missiles, crude by galactic standards but carrying devastating electromagnetic payloads, struck Vorthan defense platforms like hammers hitting glass. The elegant crystal structures simply shattered under the electromagnetic assault, leaving gaps in the orbital defense grid. Defensive perimeter compromised, reported Sub-Commander Velkris from his position on the primary defense platform. Human weapons are systematically destroying our crystal arrays. Impossible, replied Defense Coordinator Ixental. Our platforms were designed to withstand any known weapon system. Human weapons are not known weapon systems, Velkris observed grimly. They appear to have been designed specifically to destroy crystal technology. The truth was simpler than the Vorthans realized. Human engineers had studied captured Vorthon technology and discovered its fundamental weakness. Crystal systems that processed information with perfect efficiency became chaotic when subjected to the right electromagnetic frequencies. It was like introducing noise into a perfectly tuned musical instrument. Human ships poured through the gaps in orbital defense, their electromagnetic weapons clearing paths for conventional attack forces. But what followed was not conventional by any galactic standard. General Nam Ki-young's assault forces began systematic destruction of every military target on the planet's surface. But they did not stop with military targets. Industrial facilities, communication centers, transportation networks, and resource extraction operations all became targets for human fury. Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple Vorthon facilities, reported Communications Officer Lee Jin-ah. Ignore them, Ki-young replied without hesitation. Continue the attack until all strategic targets are eliminated. The decision shocked his own officers. Most galactic species accepted surrender and negotiated terms after establishing military superiority. Humans apparently had different ideas about acceptable war conduct. On the planet's surface, Vorthan civilians watched in terror as human ships systematically destroyed the infrastructure of their civilization. The attackers showed no interest in conquest or occupation. They seemed intent on reducing Vorthan society to its component elements. Emperor Krexthan broadcast desperate appeals for mercy, offering territorial concessions, tribute payments, and formal surrender. The human response was always the same: continued attack using increasingly powerful weapons. Captain Park Min-ho commanded a ground assault force that landed in the Vorthan capital city. His mission was simple: Capture or destroy the central command facilities that coordinated remaining defense efforts. Remember, we're not here to occupy, he told his troops as they prepared for combat. We're here to end this war permanently. His forces advanced through Crystal Streets using tactics that horrified Vorthan military observers. Instead of attempting to minimize civilian casualties, the humans seemed to view civilian infrastructure as legitimate military targets. Communication networks died under human attack. Transportation systems stopped functioning as electromagnetic weapons fried their crystal control systems. Power generation facilities exploded under precisely placed demolition charges. Sir, the Vorthans are trying to negotiate, reported Sergeant Kim Do-hyun during the assault on the capital's central district. With who? Park replied, continuing to direct the destruction of a major communication hub. We're not here to talk. The systematic demolition continued for 3 days. Human forces worked with mechanical efficiency to dismantle everything that made Vorthan civilization function. They were not conquerors seeking to rule, but exterminators seeking to eliminate future threats. Emperor Krexthan made increasingly desperate attempts to contact human leaders. His offers became more extravagant as his empire crumbled around him. Territory, resources, technology, even complete submission to human authority. The human response never varied. Continued attack until no organized resistance remained. War Commander. Zenthak found himself commanding the last functional Vorthan fleet, a mere 50 ships hiding in the outer system while human forces completed their systematic destruction of his homeworld. War Commander, we must attempt to escape and warn other Vorthan colonies, urged his remaining officers. Kenthak studied the tactical displays showing human forces, methodically eliminating every trace of Vorthan military capability. Escape to where? They will follow us. They will find us, and they will do this to every world we touch. Then what do you suggest? Surrender. Complete unconditional surrender before they decide to eliminate our entire species. The decision came too late. Human long-range sensors had already detected the hiding Vorthan fleet, and pursuit forces were moving to engage. But these were not the same humans who had once fought desperately to defend their colonies. General Nam Ki-young's forces had learned to use captured Vorthan technology against its creators. Human ships now carried hybrid weapon systems that combined crude electromagnetic generators with sophisticated Vorthan crystal focusing arrays. The result was weapons that exceeded anything either species had possessed individually. Electromagnetic pulses focused through crystal technology became precision instruments capable of disabling ships at extreme range. General, enemy fleet detected attempting to escape the system, reported Sensor Officer Choi Soo-bin. Pursuit course. No survivors, Ki-young ordered. The final battle was less a combat engagement than an execution. Vorthan ships designed for coordinated fleet operations proved helpless against human vessels that attacked from random directions using weapons their own technology had helped create. War Commander Zenthak watched his remaining ships die one by one, their elegant crystal hulls shattered by electromagnetic weapons powered by their own captured technology. The irony was not lost on him. Signal the humans, he ordered as his flagship took critical damage. What message, War Commander? Tell them the Empire surrenders. Complete surrender. No conditions. But the human response was the same as always. Continued attack until no enemy vessels remained functional. When the last Vorthan ship exploded in a brilliant flash of failing crystal technology, the war was over. Not through negotiation or conditional surrender, but through the complete elimination of organized enemy resistance. General Nam Ki-young stood on his bridge looking at empty space where the Vorthan fleet had been. His communications officer waited for orders regarding the enemy's surrender attempts. Sir, what do we do about the Vorthan surrender offers? Ki-young considered this carefully. Send a message to Emperor Krexthan. Tell him surrender requires coming to us personally, without weapons or escort. We'll discuss terms when their leadership proves they understand defeat. It was. Emperor Krexthan stood alone in the ruins of his crystal palace, staring at the message from General Nam Ki-young. Around him, the once magnificent capital city lay in smoking ruins, its crystalline spires shattered by electromagnetic weapons that had turned beauty into rubble. Your Majesty, whispered his last remaining advisor, Court Minister Zalthek. The humans demand your personal surrender. No weapons, no escort, no conditions. Krexthan's ancient crystalline form had dulled to the color of ash. In 3,000 years of rule, he had never imagined such complete defeat. And if I refuse, they will continue the bombardment until no Vorthon remains alive on any world. The Emperor looked through the broken walls of his palace at the human fleet orbiting his homeworld. 200 ships that had traveled across the galaxy for one purpose, to end the Vorthon Empire forever. They had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. "Prepare my personal transport," he commanded. "I will meet with their general." "Your Majesty, they could kill you the moment you board their ship." "Minister, they could kill me right now if they wished. Perhaps showing them I understand defeat might save what remains of my people." 3 hours later, Emperor Krexthan's small, unarmed transport approached the human flagship. The contrast was stark. His vessel was an elegant crystal sculpture that caught and reflected starlight, while the human ship was a scarred metal beast covered in improvised weapons and battle damage. General Nam Ki-young waited in the main hangar bay as the Vorthon Emperor's transport landed. His honor guard consisted of 20 human soldiers, whose uniforms showed the stains and tears of continuous combat. They looked like warriors who had fought across half the galaxy because they had. Emperor Krexthan emerged from his transport alone, as demanded. His crystalline form towered over the humans, but his movements spoke of complete defeat. He approached the general and performed the traditional Vorthon gesture of absolute surrender. "I am Krexthan, last emperor of the Vorthon people," he said in heavily accented human speech. "I come to beg for mercy for those who remain." General Ki-young studied his defeated enemy. According to intelligence reports, this being had ruled an empire that spanned 40 star systems and commanded fleets that had destroyed entire civilizations. Now he stood defenseless in a human hangar bay asking for mercy. "Your empire is finished," Ki-young stated simply. "Your military forces are destroyed. Your industrial capacity is eliminated. Your communication networks are dead. What exactly do you think you can surrender?" "The lives of my surviving people, General. We have perhaps 2 billion Vorthons left on scattered worlds. They pose no threat to humanity. They ask only to live." Ki-young considered this. The war had been fought with such intensity that conventional occupation was impossible. Human forces lacked the numbers to control 40 star systems, and frankly had no interest in ruling alien populations. "You will disarm completely. Every Vorthon weapon, every military installation, every ship capable of combat will be destroyed under human supervision." "Agreed. Your industrial systems will be converted to produce goods and materials for human colonies. Your people will work to repair the damage your empire caused." "Agreed. Any attempt to rebuild military capability will result in the complete extermination of your species." Emperor Krexthan's form flickered with colors that indicated deep sorrow. "Understood, General. My people will never again threaten humanity or any other species." The formal surrender took place 3 days later aboard the battleship New Seoul. Admiral Lee Dong-woo, recently promoted to Supreme Commander of all human forces, accepted the complete capitulation of the Vorthon Empire. The ceremony was broadcast throughout human space and to every surviving coalition world. For the first time in galactic history, a major military power had surrendered unconditionally after losing every single combat engagement. "The Vorthon Empire ceases to exist as of this moment," Admiral Lee announced to the assembled representatives. "All former Vorthon territory is now under human administration until such time as native populations prove capable of peaceful self-governance." The news traveled quickly through galactic civilization. Humanity, the newest and supposedly most primitive coalition member, had accomplished what no other species had managed. They had not merely defeated the Vorthons, they had completely eliminated them as a military threat. Dr. Shin Yun-ji led the first human research teams to former Vorthon industrial worlds. What they found exceeded every expectation. Vorthon technology, when properly understood, was centuries ahead of human science in specific areas. "Look at these crystal matrices," she told her research partner, Dr. Han Sungmin, as they examined captured Vorthon equipment. "They can process information at quantum speeds while using minimal power. But they're incredibly vulnerable to electromagnetic interference," Han observed. "One small pulse and the entire system fails. That's why we won." Vorthan technology is beautiful and efficient, but it has no redundancy. Human technology is crude and wasteful, but it keeps working when everything goes wrong. The research teams began the delicate process of combining human and Vorthan technologies. Human redundancy and Vorthan efficiency created hybrid systems that surpassed anything either species had achieved alone. Within 6 months, human ships carried weapons that could disable enemy vessels at ranges previously thought impossible. Human colonies used Vorthan crystal technology to create communication networks that spanned entire star systems instantly. The Galactic Coalition formally recognized humanity's new status during a ceremony on the neutral world of Centauri Prime. Ambassador Veltara, who had delivered the first warning about Vorthan aggression, now stood before human representatives as an equal. The Coalition Council officially acknowledges humanity as a dominant galactic civilization, she announced. Your rapid expansion and technological advancement through the integration of Vorthan systems makes you one of the most powerful species in known space, President. Kang Sung-ho accepted the recognition on behalf of all human worlds. The former mining engineer from New Busan now governed an empire that stretched across 67 star systems and controlled the industrial output of 12 different species. Humanity did not seek this war. He addressed the assembled alien diplomats. We fought for survival and discovered we were very good at it. We hope never to demonstrate these capabilities again, but the galaxy should understand that we will defend ourselves against any threat. The message was clear. Humanity had emerged from the war as a major power, but other species now viewed them with a mixture of respect and fear. The humans had proven capable of completely eliminating enemies who threatened them. Captain Park Soo-jin, now commanding the exploration cruiser Soul's Hope, led survey missions into the former Vorthan territories. Her task was to catalog worlds suitable for human colonization and to monitor the scattered Vorthan populations for signs of military rebuilding. It's strange, she confided to her science officer, Dr. Kim Tae-jun, as they orbited a former Vorthan industrial world. We spent so much effort learning to fight them that we barely understand how to live with victory. The war changed us, Tae-jun replied. Humanity learned to be ruthless when necessary. The galaxy noticed. Indeed, the galaxy had noticed. Other species began studying human military history, trying to understand how such a young civilization had developed such effective warfare capabilities. What they found disturbed many of them. Humans had a unique approach to conflict that emphasized adaptation, redundancy, and absolute commitment to victory. Unlike other species that fought to achieve specific political goals, humans fought to eliminate threats permanently. The monitoring stations that Captain Park's crew established throughout former Vorthan space detected new signals from unexplored regions. Deep space sensors picked up transmissions from unknown alien civilizations, some of which showed signs of advanced technology. Captain, we're detecting structured radio signals from the Andromeda contact zone, reported sensor specialist Yoon Mi-kyung. The patterns suggest intelligent origin. Park studied the data streams flowing across her screens. New alien contacts meant new potential threats or allies. After the Vorthan War, humanity was prepared for both possibilities. Signal Fleet Command, she ordered. Inform them we have new contacts in Sector 77 Alpha. Recommend immediate deployment of contact protocols. The message reached President Kang within hours. He stood in his office on Earth, looking at star charts that showed human territory as red zones spreading across previously unknown space. The rapid expansion was both opportunity and danger. Mr. President, announced his military advisor, General Choi In-ho, Fleet Command recommends immediate reconnaissance missions to investigate these new contacts. If they prove hostile, we want early warning. Kang nodded slowly. The Vorthan War had taught humanity that the galaxy contained threats they had never imagined. But it had also taught them that being human provided unique advantages when facing those threats. Deploy the reconnaissance fleets, he ordered. But remember the lessons we learned fighting the Vorthans. Unknown does not mean harmless. As human ships prepared for new journeys into unexplored space, the galaxy watched with nervous attention. The species that had eliminated the Vorthan Empire in 6 Mo